can change this. Okay. Yeah, right now is fine. Oh, then I don't need. And this one's on, and that one's on. Okay, good afternoon. I am very pleased at our turnout. I want to thank you all for attending, and I hope you have some knowledge that you take away from this. That's our goal. So I'm Kathy Nordine. I'm the vice chair of the ALC for Saddlebrook 2. And we also have Bruce Shapey. He is the co-chair of Saddlebrook 2 ALC. And then we have Mike Odell on the end, and he's the chair of the ALC for Saddlebrook 1. And we have our guest speaker. Sorry, I'm supposed to talk this way. Our guest speaker, Sam Miller, and he is a resident here in Saddlebrook and also an advocate for Dark Sky and part of Dark Sky International. And we also have a guest speaker that isn't able to be here today, but we have him through technology. So that is Richard Green. He's a professor at the University of Arizona. So that is all I have. I'm going to hand it over to Bruce. And the next slide. Next slide.
Go back to the slides. Rick,
Slides.
please. There we go.
And we might want to just stay on the slides for the most part.
I guess it's me.
Maybe not.
All right. So we want to just start out and ask some general questions. And first off, we want to know a little bit about who you are. And you've heard about who we are. So just a quick show of hands. HOA 1. Okay. Did you get a count? Okay. Okay, HOA 2? All right, I think we got you. All right, anybody from outside of Saddlebrook that is here to learn more? Welcome. All right, I wanted to start here with just some real quick questions that I'd like you to think about. And we're going to start off, and first one is Saddlebrook. Is Saddlebrook within the dark sky area? Okay, you seem to feel pretty good about that. That's good. All right. And then, I wrote this one. I said, it's so dark in Saddlebrook, and I don't feel safe without all-night lights in the front of my house. Is there a way to stay safe while following the requirements of the Pinal County ordinance? And so there's things like utilize motion detectors, decrease your light intensity after 10 p.m., focus light when needed, where needed, rather than flooding every space, or all of the above. Maybe you won't even need this. We can go home. Okay. And then the last one, this is a little more technical, is an 800 lumen bulb, approximately equivalent to a 60-watt incandescent bulb. Lumens, watts, yes? No? Maybe? All right, we're going to learn a little bit more. Okay, we found one. All right, go ahead, Sam. Thank you all.
Well, it's nice to be in a friendly group. I see a lot of familiar faces, neighbors, and some of our Skygazers Astronomy Club folks. Anytime we mention dark skies, they run to get the information. So it's nice to see you all here, and all of you for that matter. We have a bunch of topics to go through. We're going to talk about ordinances and why we are here. A little bit about the artificial light at night. You're going to hear me say a lot about light pollution. I'm going to use that term a lot. And remember, when I say light pollution, think obnoxious light, not just light. It's obnoxious light. We'll talk a little bit about the industry, and as Kathy said, one of my colleagues is going to speak to us on why the sky glow that we have in our large cities affects the industry, the astronomy industry. And talk a little bit about the little animals that run around here at night. And then Kathy will finish up with some lighting examples. Now, you might ask, why is a guy like me standing up here talking about birds, bees, little fuzzy things, insects, and what has that got to do with you when you're interested about the light that you're going to put on your front porch? Well, there is a connection, and hopefully after this you'll connect those dots. As Kathy said, I am an advocate for Dark Sky International. I spend a lot of my time running around southern Arizona speaking to groups like this, homeowners associations, concerned neighborhood groups, schools, government. Government is the least fun of any of those. But I spend my time talking to them about the hazards of light at night. And I have about 2,200 colleagues around the world on 6 continents, and this is what we do. We work at restoring the night, protecting the night sky, and educating those of you who live in and around cities particularly on the value of reasonable lighting and the effects of harmful lighting. And we do that through education, outreach, advocacy, conservation, and teaming with like-minded nature organizations. And we try to prevent things like from this. That is obviously Las Vegas. There are not too many stars above Las Vegas that you can see. I don't need to tell you that we live in a wonderful place here at Saddlebrook. And as such, we are near a bunch of astronomy science facilities on the mountaintops around us. And as a result, we live in Zone 1, a low ambient light site. You all answered that question nicely. As a result, the state has passed statutes to regulate the light. The counties implement those statutes, and as a result, we have lighting ordinances. This is not that, by the way. The Pinell County lighting ordinance is really good bedtime reading. It will put you to sleep in about 4 heartbeats. It is long, it's detailed, it is engineering oriented, and it's not difficult or not easy to interpret. It's actually quite difficult to interpret or understand. But I know this is a light or a bit of an eye check, but the reason that Pinell County and others have done this is a statement up here about many people move to Pinell County because they enjoy the lovely evening night skies. And dark skies and unobtrusive lights are of great value to the residents. They're not only the astronomy industry, but we have a very large, not very well known astrotourism industry here in Arizona, and particularly in southern Arizona. So this flyer is available on Pinell County's website if you'd like to review it. Some of the general conditions are listed here. However, there is a resource that has kind of melded all of those complicated issues down into a very readable, usable text, and your ALCs have done that for you. Our guidelines are a compilation of all of those rules and regulations into something that's a little more readable and plain. So I encourage you to get on the website, look at your respective guidelines, And if you understand those, great. If you have questions, contact the ALC and they will help you go from there. But those guidelines implement a worldwide accepted principles of responsible lighting that we and the Illumination Engineering Society devised lots of years ago, and it's accepted worldwide, and almost all of the guidelines or regulations written today are based upon those principles, and they're really quite easy, quite common sense. The first is if you need light, use it. Go ahead and light the property or whatever you need to illuminate, but do it responsibly. Point it in the direction, target it, if you will, so that it doesn't invade your neighbor's bedroom window. Use a brightness level that doesn't blast them out or your property for that matter, and control it. If it can, you don't need the light, it's after hours, go ahead and turn it off or use motion detectors or dim the light. And then that last item is one that's not familiar with a lot of folks, and we'll go through that in detail. Warm color pertains to soft and comfortable, pleasing to the eyes light, as opposed to really bright, dark, stark light. I don't need to tell you that the lighting industry has changed over the years, and with the invention of CFLs and LEDs, our language has changed. Now we have things like lumens, LEDs, CFLs, shielding, Kelvin temperature scale. All of those are new to a lot of folks who are not, for example, engineering majors. So when you go to the hardware store with your burned out 60-watt incandescent bulb nowadays, here's what you're faced with. This is a sample tag of a label on an LED light. And the things that you would look at to determine if this light is satisfactory for you are the amount of brightness, the temperature, and the energy being used. Now, the energy is the same as it's always been. Your 60-watt light bulb used 60 watts of energy. LEDs use that, or label that same energy, but since they are so much more efficient, you're going to see this number is much smaller. Lumens are a measure of light. They're a measure of luminosity, of brightness, and it's measured by a meter, and this is truth in advertising. The manufacturer is telling you how much light is coming out of that fixture. Okay, here's the new little feature. Those of you with a little science background might remember that Kelvin is the absolute temperature scale. Well, light color is indicated, measured using Kelvin, using degrees Kelvin. And the light spectrum, goes from really, really bright 15,000 K all the way down to almost nothing. But and it has a lot to do, not just the temperature, but with the content of that light, whether it's kind of towards the yellow or amber scale as opposed to the very bright white at the top. The warm that's showing here is 2700 K. That's what we push as a ideal light. It's pleasing to the eye, it's very warm and comfortable. As you go up in that scale, say to 3500, 4000, 4500, then you get into the blue light, and we'll talk to blue light here in just a little bit. But even further than that, daylight light from the sun ranges from 48 to about 65 K, depending upon the atmospheric conditions. But this number we would like you to remember. 2700 to about 3000 is kind of ideal in terms of comfortable lighting. One thing I want to point out that I missed, that number down there at the bottom, the 9 watts, Here's a little rule of thumb to help you when you go to the store with that burned out 60-watt light bulb. LEDs are roughly 7 times more efficient than incandescent. So if you will multiply that number, 9, by 7, you'll come up with 63. Well, that approximates 60. That is your 60-watt incandescent light bulb. And there are lots of charts on the internet like this that will help you make that conversion. But that's just a ballpark way to get close to the bulb that you might want to use. And you can see that these numbers on the right-hand side, they vary a little bit. They will because the manufacturers, even though they have specifications, their lights may vary an energy bump or two, plus or minus. So that's truth in advertising. That 60-watt bulb will vary between 8 and 12 watts. 9 is kind of the standard for an 800 lumen bulb. Okay, now that you know everything there is to know about light, let's talk about light. We understand what pollution is. You know, we can see it, particularly if it's in the water like this. We can smell it. We can see it. Hopefully you can't taste it in your water. Unfortunately, some parts of our country have had the misfortune of being able to do that. But we don't often think of light at night as pollution. And it's really only a phenomena of the last few decades, 20 to 30 years or so. However, I think it's a function of our environment. We have put so much interest in our environment because obviously it's changing. There have been so many studies done along the way. People started understanding, researchers started understanding that light has a bearing on a lot of things, us too, people. So light fell under that frame of pollution, golly, lots of years ago. And it's been widely advertised. You can go anywhere on the internet now and find out information about light pollution, the effects of light pollution. You can see that term, pollution, because that's the formal term. Again, I refer to it as obnoxious light, but you'll see this in magazines. The United Nations has even picked it up. They have a committee. They have an agenda item every year. They have people studying it. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. The EU, by the way, just passed some regulatory guidance on light pollution that was really good. We really like that. We've been unfortunately unable to get that done in this country, but hopefully in the near future we will. We have a lot of nature groups, and when I bring this slide up, in other forums, they have been quick to jump on that and ask me to speak to that, and we will here in just a little bit. Light pollution comes in 3 flavors. The first is glare. And most of you, I would think, have experienced this when you're driving down a road at night and someone has their bright lights, obnoxious bright lights, in your face. What do? You put your hand up, try to block it out so you can see what, maintain your side of the road. We found, unfortunately, that injury lawyers like glare too. There have been several cases in the country where a homeowner has put this obnoxious light on the front porch thinking they really need to light up the place, and a neighbor or a visitor comes walking down the sidewalk, doesn't see the crack in the sidewalk, falls, breaks their arm, sues the homeowner, and wins the suit because the light was a safety issue, it was blinding, and it didn't conform to the lighting regulations of that particular area. So that's not a particularly pleasant factor of glare, but someone is benefiting, unfortunately, injury lawyers. Next is trespass, light trespass, and that's the clue, is trespass. This is when light from your property goes beyond your property line and into your neighbor's bedroom window, for example. it exceeds where you had intended it to be. And there are lots and lots of examples of light trespass, even in our neighborhoods, by the way. The last is sky glow, and this is the one that is most affects the industry, the astronomy industry. It's that cloud over the city that you see, that glow, if you will. That is totally wasted light. It's not performing any purpose at all, other than maybe being able to see where you're going if you're driving on a night drive and you're going to a city like Phoenix. You can see Phoenix from a long ways away because of the sky glow. Here is this is called a Bortle scale, and our astronomy club members, particularly our astrophotographers, understand this. The Bortle scale runs from 1 to 8. This is as if, for example, you're in the middle of a city, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and you look up, you don't see any stars. As you go further and further away from that sky glow, you get nicer skies, better skies, you can see the stars, you can see the Milky Way in all of its glory. We here in Saddlebrook are in what's called the rural suburbs, Bortle 4. That is our location, and we have pretty good skies here for the most part. Our astronomy club has monthly star parties, and we have a grand time showing people who have never looked through a telescope all the beauty of the night sky. We can do that here at that location. Unfortunately, light pollution is a global issue. It is not just the US or Europe. And we like to say typically that 83%, and I think that's conservative, live under a polluted sky. That was satellite data. This is satellite data of the US. You can see the dark, black areas. Those are areas where the sky is really nice. It's the brightest or the nicest sky, the Bortle 1, if you will, sky where you can see the stars, Milky Way, and all. I cannot explain this demarcation line here. We've talked with a lot of folks in the industry, and they can't either. There's something demographic about our US, because maybe it's a barrier to keep the Easterners from invading us. I don't know. But it really is an interesting phenomena. The whole eastern part of the country is pretty wiped out, with the exception of a few areas. When we start asking the question about, well, where can we go see faint objects like the Milky Way, it reduces to that. And then we look at the dark, really pristine areas, there's not much left. So you remember that 83% live under polluted skies? I think the US is greater than that. That little circle is where we are in Saddlebrook. I don't have the state outline shown. This little area right here is an area in between Oregon Pipe National Monument, National Park, and Yuma. This is on the New Mexico border. That's Hannigan Meadow, and this is above the Grand Canyon. But that's all there is, unfortunately. Here is that same satellite data to show a little more detail where we are. Kitt Peak, you see there just to the west of us. Mount Lemmon is right above us. The circle is where we are, by the way, in Saddlebrook. And the Whipple Smithsonian Observatory is there. Mount Graham is there. Phoenix is a lost cause. There is no hope for Phoenix. And we know that scientifically and rationally. There is, however, hope for Tucson, and we are making inroads. We, Dark Sky, are working with the city of Tucson, the city planners. My colleague, who you will hear in just a little bit, is working with the policymakers, and we are working on trying to prevent Tucson light glow from growing anymore. And in fact, there is an idea, you've probably heard the term cap and trade, where we are trying to push an idea that if we build more light, well, we have to reduce it on the other side. So Tucson, thankfully, is forward thinking. And as I said, Phoenix can't even spell it. So they're in a little bit of trouble. Here's a topic that Kathy and the others asked me to touch upon because it always comes up in our kind of post-presentation conversations. And we are not the guilty party here, by the way. Dark Sky does not fund any research projects like this, but there have been many, many studies for the last, golly, lots of years, trying to answer the question, does light increase safety? And the bottom line is that there is no correlation between light and decreased crime. Insurance companies, cities, neighborhoods were the major funders of all of these studies that have been done. Those are some of the periodicals. You may not know those, but there are a bunch more that these articles have been published in. But the point is that, and I know this is probably contrary to our community here because there are several of my neighbors that like to keep their lights on at night outdoor. My lights come off at 10, and not because I'm a dark sky advocate, it's because I see no value in lighting up my area because I'm going to bed, period. And I can't keep the javelina from kicking over a garbage can, whether it's lit or not. And the deer are not gonna not come eat my flowers. So I have two nice flowering plants in front. 14 years, I have never trimmed them. The deer do a wonderful job of trimming them for me. And they look quite nice, by the way. But the point is there is reason, albeit maybe psychological, for leaving your lights on at night, although we'd like to follow some guidelines when you do that. It may make you feel more comfortable, but the statistics show quite favorably that there is no correlation between light and decreased crime. And in fact, there are some cases where light actually increases crime in some areas. So let's talk about astronomy, and I'm going to let my colleague do some speaking here in just a second, but I wanted to point out some of the facilities. This is the Whipple Smithsonian Observatory down atop Green Valley. That is the Kitt Peak National Observatory. This is the Large Binocular Telescope, the LBT, fabulous piece of equipment. If you are ever in Safford and you have an opportunity to take that tour, go. It's fabulous. It's huge. And the tour is great. You get to wander all over the place. There's a small millimeter telescope there as well, radio telescope, and the Vatican has their only telescope outside of Italy there as well. And it's a nice place, by the way. The priests do it up really well. And that's Mount Lemmon. We're going to talk about Mount Lemmon in a little more detail, but one has just recently popped up. In this area, I don't have a slide of it. In this area over here, there are 2 science-grade telescopes that have been installed and a swarm of smaller telescopes. Their projects are collaborating with the big scopes and adding additional material and scope data to their projects. So this is kind of a 5th facility near us. Right there's Mount Lemmon. And if you'll look very closely, there's a ridge line right there. Guess what's on the other side of that ridge line? We are. Preserve, HOA1, HOA2, you bet. All there. So what I'm going to do is just a very brief introduction, and then Rick is going to play the video. Dr. Richard Green is on the board, the Southern Arizona chapter, with us in Dark Sky. He is an astronomer. Although he is senior now, not so much in age, but in capability and what he does, he still dabbles a little bit, and he collaborates with quasar demographics, and I'm speaking to our club a little bit here, including some of the high redshift quasars. He does get to do that research, but primarily he spends a lot of his time with the policymakers, with government. He is the assistant director of government relations for the University of Arizona, and his function is to work with policymakers to protect the intrusion of the night sky glow and light damage, if you will, on our astronomy industry. So, Rick, if you'll go ahead and start that video, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the chance to talk with you this afternoon. I'm Richard Green. I'm an astronomer at the University of Arizona, and I have served as director of Cape Peak National Observatory and the Large Binocular Telescope Observatory, and have been very involved in trying to protect the dark skies for those observatories over many years. So I want to talk to you about what artificial sky glow does to astronomical observations and why it's so valuable for your community to take an interest in preserving dark skies. To be clear, astronomers actually chose southern Arizona. The Sonora Desert here is just uniquely good for astronomical observing because of so many nights of having clear, dark skies. That is really an essential part of the desert environment itself. We look to the National Park Service to give us an example of the kind of thinking that relates the natural sky to the unique natural environments. And so if you go to their website, you will see they say the National Park Service protects and restores natural night skies and nocturnal environments in national parks as part of the natural resources, processes, systems, and values protected under the National Park Service Organic Act. They remind us that ecosystems rely on natural cycles of light and dark, and natural night skies are also a key component of wilderness character. So we know that we value living here because of our unique desert environment, and therefore preserving those dark skies is a critical component of preserving the desert that we live in for the values that we find for our homes and community. As a reminder, southern Arizona actually has the best sites for optical astronomy. It has the world's largest telescope. The Large Binocular Telescope remains the world's largest optical telescope, and it is on Mount Graham, right here. The MNT is the third largest telescope, and Lowell up north has its Discovery Telescope, and the Mayall, the big 4-meter on Cape Peak, represent otherwise together, taken together, 4 of the 40 largest telescopes in the world, and in that order for the continental United States. So we are the host and home to serious professional astronomy. Why is it worth protecting dark skies? Why should we do it? And what's the benefit to professional astronomy? Well, astronomy is, in itself, a high-tech industry. And it has spawned here an optics industry that is one of the mainstays. The Arizona Tech Council will tell you it's one of the mainstays of Southern Arizona high-tech industry. Maintaining dark skies keeps the state competitive for new projects. Astronomy comprises a lot of scientific and engineering elements and is a real gateway to attract kids into what are called STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math. And a lot of money flows in because of the unique sites special investments in telescopes. Comes in for astronomical research. The 2023 report shows that the economic return and impact is $560 million just in southern Arizona from this enterprise. So it's like we have the Super Bowl every year. The other thing is people say, well, just launch everything into space. Look what James Webb Space Telescope is doing. And I'll just point out that cutting edge research depends on telescopes on the ground as a complement to those in space. And so I give this quick example because Astronomer has to talk about some astronomy, but the way we measure the distribution of matter in the universe has to do with how Einstein's prediction that matter bends light shows that the presence of dark matter elongates the shapes of galaxies. So this example is from Chile. There are great examples from Arizona as well, but they're going to take an enormous survey, and that survey will have some 2.6 billion galaxies, but they're really, really faint. If you're an amateur astronomer, they're going to be 27th magnitude, and that is an extremely faint object. In fact, the natural sky glow produces 100 light particles for every one coming from those distant galaxies. However, we now have a real challenge. So I'm showing you spectral data, the rainbow of color produced by various light sources. And on the upper left, you see what a dark night sky looks like over roughly, this is deep blue, this is deep red. Our visual range is more like here. And you can see it's a very low level. Here is what happens when we look at the telescopes that are adjacent to Tucson, and you can see in the old days there was a very strong component of high pressure sodium that makes a big glow where there is none in the natural night sky. So here are the shapes of different kinds of light sources. This is why astronomers love low pressure sodium, because it disrupts only a tiny fraction of the visible light spectrum. However, those are no longer being made, and they need to be replaced. So here's high pressure sodium. You remember the pinkish glow of those old lights, but they're being rapidly replaced by solid state lighting, which has a very broad spectrum over a big range from blue through yellow, orange, and into red. So we just know that that is increasing the glow, and where there used to be no light in the greenish blue, now there's a fair amount of light from the typical lights that are being put into place. So just the change in technology alone is having a real impact. That solid state lighting has, of course, advantages and disadvantages. It's very energy efficient, and so the conversion is going everywhere, but the blue light scatters in the sky and makes it more difficult to see the sky. And it turns out that rather than saving money, people are deciding to get more light for the same amount of electricity, typically. So things are getting brighter with time. The good news is that these lights are much more controllable than the vapor lamps that used to be used. So they can be dimmed later in the night. They can be better focused because they have built-in lenses. And you can choose the kind of lighting, and the dark sky community can make a real choice about that has limited color ranges so that it better protects the night sky. Depending on how things are measured, the rate of humans putting light into the sky is increasing at somewhere between 2 and 10% per year, reducing darkness absolutely everywhere on the planet, even at remote locations. So there have been a series of workshops, and more are being planned, between our International Astronomical Professional Society, the International Astronomical Union, and the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, that looked at this problem of ground-based light pollution. And they defined a goal, and I actually helped share some of those activities, to a real goal. Let's try to slow, stop, and reverse this increasing pollution of the dark night sky on a time scale of 10 years or so. So that requires prompt action now, and having a thoughtful consideration of the whole community area to take on controlling and making quality lighting is a very good step. So I'm sure Sam has talked to you plenty about the Dark Sky International and their principles of outdoor lighting, but you only put it where you need it. You really make sure it's going to the place that you need the light, and you aren't dumping light into the sky or else or onto walls where you don't need it. It's actually more difficult to navigate if there's too much light. So you plan the level of lighting for what you need, and next generation lighting should have active control so that when there are no people and no safety issues, the lights can fade away. And try to avoid that blue light. It disrupts animal life. It's indoor light at night. Blue light has health impacts. So tuning the color output of that light to avoid blue is a real plus. Well, what about protection from sky glow? Here is a view from the summit of Mount Graham, which shows the light domes, the scattered light from the city. From Tucson and from Phoenix, they're about equal. Phoenix is twice as far away, and therefore its 4 times bigger population equals out, kind of. Mount Graham remains a very good site, and so that's a horizon effect that isn't propagated upward very much. But every community in those regions helps contribute to that sky glow, and so community by community, if we can damp that down, it's better. A really dark site has only a few percent scattered artificial light over and above the natural sky glow. And it's a challenge in the darkest sites to figure out how much that actually is. There was a measured test, however, because the city of Tucson actually converted its high pressure and low pressure sodium to a sort of broader spectrum solid state light-emitting diode technology. And so they transformed to fully shielded white light, and so they reduced the amount of light being emitted by 63%, as you see, and they were careful to distribute that beam so that it gave a low and uniform lighting beneath the light. So John Valentine, a local resource and expert on lighting, reported this in a scientific journal. So Lindy Point's on the way at Mount Lemmon, and at the summit of Mount Lemmon, and you can see the before and after effect on the horizon, which is quite stunning. There's a real reduction because of the reduction of light that was not needed on the streets. Really great. There's a satellite looking down on Tucson and seeing how much light is going up, and there was a good agreement that it seemed to reduce the light coming up from Tucson by about 7 to 10%. So it made a real difference. So fully shielded lighting really helps in terms of the amount of light going up into the sky. Here's a contour map of what, based on satellite data, and it shows you where all the observatories are. So here's Mount Graham and the kind of low lights from Safford. Here's Mount Lemmon, which is right on the edge of this area. It peaks out in the skirts where it's fairly dark, and so is the Smithsonian Observatory on Mount Hopkins. And so we're trying to protect that. We made these zones for the state to consider, and it is a lighting overlay. Those measurements show that the telescope up near Lowell is really dark. Kitt Peak and Mount Graham have their skies lit up at zenith by close to the limit of a good sight, maybe 8-10%. And Mount Hopkins and Mount Lemmon are getting brighter. And so we need these protected zones, and we need communities to recognize that astronomy needs protection here. So it requires measurement and modeling. It requires the lighting zones, which we have. The Mount Lemmon is a lighting zone, and I think Pinal County recognizes that as well. But voluntary reduction of lighting is even better. And I'll close by saying that our International Professional Society years ago made a declaration that there is a universal right to starlight, that everybody on the planet should be able to go not too far and to be able to see the Milky Way and the beauty of the night sky. So we are particularly fortunate here in southern Arizona. We really have that opportunity, and I encourage you to consider carefully becoming a dark sky community. Thanks for the chance to talk.
Thank you, Rick. You noticed that last little slight comment about he encouraged us to be a dark sky community. We're going to need to talk to our board of directors on both in order to pull that one off. But that is a possibility here, by the way, because we are a fairly dark community, and we have the regulatory guidance in the way of our ALC guidelines to do that. However, I want to add on something that Richard said, maybe to make a little more emphasis. All of these little spots up here are asteroids that the Catalina Sky Survey discovered as near-Earth objects, 1,546 of them last year in 2023. Now, the Catalina Sky Survey is atop Mount Lemmon. Another facility at Kitt Peak and one on the Big Island on top of Mauna Loa, I believe, Mauna Kea. They, every night, survey the night sky, and they look for objects that could endanger us. Well, just last August, one of our astronomers here in Mount Lemmon, in the Catalina Sky Survey, discovered something that was really questionable, and after they started doing all the trajectory work and so forth, they declared it a near-Earth impact. So the alarm bells went off. They started tracking the trajectory, the speed, the angle that it would come in at our atmosphere. Once we got the big eyes on it, that is the ground telescopes, they discovered that it's only about 3 feet in diameter. It's a 1 meter object. But that's the precision that our folks who are doing this, and it's a NASA funded project in conjunction with the University of Arizona, that's what the Catalina Sky Survey can do. Once they did all of that, they determined where it would impact, and it was near the Philippines. That was video taken. It came into the atmosphere, burned up. I'm sure some remnants went into the ocean, but that was a near miss. Had that been much larger, it could have done some damage. But we knew about it ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to tug at your heartstrings a little bit. We're back to dark sky stuff. Astronomy is where all the money is, but the environment is where we live. And there are some things that I'd like to point out, that there has been so much research done as a result of, again, our environment. We have so much data that it's difficult to keep up with sometimes, but there have been studies on 160 species, of which we are one of those 160, and we're going to speak to that here in a little bit. Birds and turtles, sea turtles, are uniquely the same in respect to light. They're not biologically, we think, affected by light. However, they are drawn to light. And as a result, during the migration periods, both here and in Europe, and we work with the European facilities as well, it's estimated that we lose about 1 billion birds a year that crash into windows at night during their migration. 80% of the species in North America migrate some distance, and 70% of those migrate at night. And as a result, Toronto, Denver, several other cities have built lights out programs during the migration periods where they dim the lights in their taller buildings to try and prevent, so many bird deaths. We don't know why they are attracted to light, but they certainly are. We're not on a zone or a migration area or path here in Tucson. However, we do have downtown Tucson and some extended areas, buildings that are lit, and our Audubon colleagues right now are going around those buildings every morning and picking up dead birds, categorizing them, and collecting data. Interestingly, the turtles are very similar. All 7 species, all 7 variations of the sea turtles are endangered. The biologists used to think that when the turtles hatch, they would always have some sense of gravity and they would go downhill to the water. Not so. A lot of research later, they determined that these, like the birds, search out light. And what is happening nowadays is along all of those coastlines where the nests are, we're building up, and there are cities, beach houses, lights all over the place, and the turtles will turn around and go the wrong way and end up in places where they probably ought not to go. Up until 10 to 12 years ago, the sea turtles were succumbing, and it's amazing how many never made the water. Thankfully, lots of conservatories in Florida, along the Central and South America coast, even in Singapore, they have nature clubs who guide these little guys. Don't let them go to the light. They guide them to the water by literally creating highways, pathways from their nesting area to the water, and they don't let them go to the water or go to the light. So they're given a better chance. However, it's not just the birds and the turtles. All of those little animals that are running around at night, they are biologically affected by light. When we humans move into their neighborhood, we disrupt their way of life. We disrupt their environment. Lots of things change, and the research has got a long list of things, how some of them are affected. It affects their mating behavior. It affects how they search for food, when they search for food. It affects the food chain itself. And if these particular animals, these little fuzzy creatures, can escape, they do. If they have the capability of leaving and going to another environment, they will. If they don't, then they die out and we lose them. However, it's not just birds, turtles, and little fuzzy creatures. You see that note, that study from the New York, or the article from the New York Times that the insect apocalypse is here. I don't know about you, but I'm aware of this. I get out at night a lot. There are not a lot of moths anymore. They're just not there. Now, you do get moths circle around the lights, but think about when you were growing up. Those little buggers were everywhere. Not now. Now, there are reasons behind that. Insecticides probably are a reason as well, but we know light has a devastating effect on the night pollinators. The bees get the credit for pollinating during the day, the moths pollinate at night, and we're losing a lot of those as a result of nighttime circulating the bright lights. There's a really interesting study over there on the right done with high-speed cameras to better understand how the moths actually behave around light. It's kind of a funny but fascinating story. And it's not just the bees, the insects, even plants and trees are affected by light. And it's not just the light itself, but it's the spectra of the light that adversely affects our crops. In this case, this is, if I recall, a soybean field. The light has tricked the beans and they won't mature. So the farmer loses a bit of that crop. There are lots of other crops that are also sensitive to light that will not mature. Probably the elephant in the room is the fact that most of that light, that sky glow that we talked about, that is wasted light. That serves no purpose. It costs a lot of money. And unfortunately, we pump a lot of CO2, greenhouse gases, into the air as a result. Okay, bottom line, and then I'll get off the stage. I'm not your physician, but I'm going to come at you from the perspective of science. At night, if you sleep in a dark room, you will sleep better and your overall health will improve. I wonder if your doctor has told you that. I'm not sure. You know, we all love our little night lights, or a lot of us do, but the dark adaptation is something that is critical to the human body. We have, depending upon your point of view, over thousands of years have learned to work on a day-night algorithm. We need the darkness in order for a little gland called the pineal gland in the cortex of our brain to produce a hormone called melatonin. Exactly. Melatonin regulates our cycle, our day-night cycle. And we're now discovering that melatonin has so many more functions than just that. When that cycle, or when that production of melatonin is interrupted, then all kinds of bad things happen. I'm going to get a little nerdy here for just a second, but this is to make a point. We know now that our circadian rhythm is, and that melatonin function is best at the blue light spectrum, at blue-violet. Well, guess where the blue-rich LEDs are? Same spectrum. Folks, this is why you will see, and I hope knowledgeable people tell you to turn off your LED televisions a couple hours before bedtime, turn off your computer, close your phone, turn it off, put it down, pick up a good book for a couple hours prior to bedtime, and hopefully read it under a warm 2700K light. You might go to sleep better, sleep in a darker room nicer, and be a lot healthier, hopefully. Now, nowadays, every research article that comes out tells us about something that's going to kill us. And there are a lot of them. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. But there has been an awful lot of medical research here in the last few years, and it's being replicated over and over again with similar findings, pointing out that stroke, heart disease, stroke is cerebrovascular disease, sleep deprivation, and it's interesting how many of these two show up. Not just breast and prostate, but cancer, but the reproductive functions in general show up a lot. Shift workers are affected by this a lot, unfortunately. There were two really good studies that came out just a little short time ago, one on stroke and one on the ovarian syndromes. And regardless what you think about China, China is putting out some really good research nowadays. They have a big population. They're worried and concerned about their population control and or birth rate. That 20,600 women, that is a large population for a medical study. But we're seeing several of things like that come out from China. And as a result, they likewise frequently point out to prostate, breast, and ovarian dysfunction. And it goes back to melatonin. They have pretty well statistically replicated that point. So how can we help? What can we do? And it really can be done quickly. When I talk to groups that have some youngsters in them or schools, and I ask this question, invariably some enterprising young lady or young guy will pop up and say, well, just turn the darn light switch off. Well, that is a reasonable answer, but it's not very true to life. We really do need light, but we want to use light responsibly. So how do we do that? Well, we pay attention to the 5 principles that I just spoke to you about a little bit ago, and we pay attention to the guidelines that are, those principles are incorporated to our ALC guidelines. Everything you need to know, want to know, is pretty much in here. And again, if you have a question, just ask. They will help you. Kathy?
Yeah, I need the remote. No, I got this one. You can keep that one. Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit. I have light fixtures that are in our community coming up in the next slide. But so what we talk about, to get rid of that glow, we don't want the light going past this horizontal line. We want a light fixture that does this. And so these 2 pictures, and Sam provided me this slide. So it is a commercial building, but this light, we're lighting the whole front of the building. We're lighting this tower. Do we need that light? And this is providing the surface that you walk on or that you need to see. So I took some pictures off the internet of lights. So these do not meet the guidelines. You can see the light source. Oops, wrong button. You can see the light source, and this one shines up. These do meet the guidelines. This one shines down only. It has a shield at the top. This one shines down. This one also shines down and out, but the light source is an LED tucked up here, so it's not coming out. And then this one, we have a lot on our houses, and the light bulb is tucked up here, so the light comes out on this one. And I pulled all these pictures from the Lights Plus website, and they had a really good, the reason why, they had a good search engine. You could search for dark sky fixtures. I didn't have to go through the Lowe's site and find them. They did the work for me. And so if you have a post-mounted light, this one, because again you see the light source, it does not meet the guidelines. This one, the light source is tucked under here and shines down, so that one would. So I also drove around the community and took a few photographs. These on the left do not meet the guidelines. This sconce is shining up and it's way too bright, and so are these. And on this one, it's kind of low, maybe you guys can't see it, but this one is a cool light, as Sam talked about, and this one's a warm light. So the cool light looks brighter because it is, and it's putting off that other spectrum. And these lights also are sconces that shine up. And these are sconces that shine down. So these both meet. The recessed lights at the preserve meet the guidelines because they come down. So our existing lights. So these are 2 lights that I found on houses. They're the same light. They look different because they have different bulbs in them. This one has a cool light, and this one has a warm light. Oh, I forgot to take the address off that one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I blocked the addresses off the houses. But anyway, they're wonderful lights. This one, unfortunately with the address, pretty much meets the guidelines. For some reason, it's got a less amount of light coming out than this one does at the top. So I'm not sure if the light fixture came with a baffle that one home took out or whatever. But the one on the right is better. Oops. Okay, and then here's existing lights. The top row complies, the bottom row does not. So do you see your fixture on there or something similar? And I want to tell you that the fixtures on the bottom that don't comply, that are perforated, in my mind, that part isn't the part that's non-compliance because there's not that much light coming out the perforation or the lens. It's the up portion of the light. Or in this one, it's the intensity of the light. So getting away from the light itself, a couple other of the guideline things. Here's a home that I'm driving by taking photographs, and the security light in the back is bright. So that needs to be a lighter, a bulb with less intensity, lower wattage, and it also needs to be angled down onto their own property. So this picture probably is deceiving because I think this is my headlights, but I think this is probably from that light, but that's my headlights. So when you go on another property and there's a shadow, you know your light is shining incorrectly. And then colored lights, these patio lights are allowed and to be off at 10, but not colored. So those were just a couple violations that I saw driving around. And so what's next? We don't need you to replace your fixtures. We need you to change the light bulbs. Take a look at the light bulbs that you have. Are they 800 lumen light or less, or that 9 watts? I'll give you that chart at the end so you can look at it while we do questions and answers. We can change the light bulb to a warm color. We turn off the unnecessary lights after 10 o'clock. Check to see if your light trespasses onto your neighbor's property. Can you see a shadow on your neighbor's property? That's light trespass. So aim it differently, use a lower wattage, things like that. When you're interested in changing fixtures, pick out a fixture, apply for an ALC permit, and we will let you know whether it meets it or does not. Enjoy the dark sky and the beautiful stars, and that's the comment that we had last week. So I thought it was good to put it on here. I'm handing this over to Bruce and Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So we just wanted to give a little quick synopsis of, from the ALC perspective, kind of what's next. I'll speak for HOA 2, Mike will speak for HOA 1. We have a little different starting point, if you will, but, we are certainly all supportive of these goals. So I guess I want to, just to reinforce one of the things Kathy said is, if you don't meet all these things, we're not going to come to your house and tell you to change your fixture or change your bulbs or anything like that. We are encouraging you, when you make a change, to change it in these directions, and we would be happy to help you. And there was another thing I noticed, Kathy did great research and found Lamps Plus had lots of dark sky options. Well, I was one of those houses in the bad list, So I was in Home Depot last week, and I'm looking, and there were like 2 fixtures I could find in that store. I'm told Lowe's is a little better for dark sky type things. So anyway, it could be a challenge to find fixtures, but nonetheless, it's worth it. I do encourage you all to go that route. So HOA2 has had guidelines that included the lots of information about lighting since 2016. We had a member that year who was gung-ho, and we got some great stuff. So we are a little bit ahead of HOA 1 in that regard because of that start that we had. We encourage you to take a look at it whenever you're changing a fixture, and then certainly if you have questions, give us a call, ask HOA2. We have an email, and we'll help you out. You need to get a permit because we do want you to run it through. There are still some visual things that we want to make sure people have when they make a change of a fixture. So we do want you to think about that. And I want to just say one little quick thing about the dreaded E word, which is enforcement. I see this as something that we want people to succeed. Let's say that. I'm gonna come at it from that perspective. We have worked with the patrol to a certain degree to go out and take pictures overnight, and it's usually pretty easy to spot a house that has lights on after 10. If you're driving around at 2 a.m. and have nothing better to do, it's easy to find them. And so we'll get photos from the patrol, and they'll say, hey, these houses are, lights on after 10. And we've started this approach where we'll say, okay, that's fine. We'll reach out to them, but we will say, hey, here's some things we'd like you to do to help you to succeed, to help you to comply. And no threat of, fine or that kind of thing. We want you to just get it right. So anyway, that's how we're looking at things right now with the HOA2 ALC. And then there is another way we get input, and that is from complaints. That's something we can't control as well, and if there is a particularly egregious situation, that might be something that we would, take more serious steps, I guess. If there's a problem, hopefully it's not neighbor versus neighbor. Hopefully it's just somebody that's noticed something that seems off. So anyway, we will look into those. Every time we get a complaint, we do, check it out. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about HOA2, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike here and let him talk a bit about HOA1.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Sam and Kathy. The information, I took lots of notes myself. The information that was provided today was wonderful. Thank you for all your hard work and your dedication. Thank you. But more important, I want to thank you for being here. This is amazing. When we first talked about doing this, we were deciding on the size of room, and we thought maybe we could do a smaller space, but it would never have worked. This is fantastic, so give yourself a round of applause. ALC 1, HOA 1 guidelines. This works out great for us. When we first started this, we were in the midst of rewording our guidelines, and we were just looking at making some noun-verb agreement changes. We were just trying to make them look a little better and to read better. But now that we've got more information, and we're aware that Pinell County is changing their guidelines as well, so our guidelines will be working together with Pinell County and learning more about what our guidelines should state. As they said, they have more specific guidelines than we do in HOA 2. Our guidelines are, we both say that we're going to adhere to Pinell County guidelines. So that's going to happen, and then we're going to get into a little more specifics when it comes to that. As we talked about the E word, enforcement, I had to smile because you're not alone in having a house that's in violation. I have wonderful looking punched tin sconces in front, but they're open on the top. Now, my caveat is I turn my lights off at 10 o'clock. So I'm not in violation, but if I left them on, they would be. Enforcement is something we have discussed with the Saddlebrook Patrol, and they're going to work with us in HOA 1 when it comes to that. And we do take resident reports very seriously, and we examine them. The issue with dealing with Saddlebrook Patrol is every member of the ALC, both ALCs, is a volunteer. We don't expect them to be out there at 11 o'clock at night looking for problems. So we're going to be looking for help from the patrol in dealing with this when we finally get our guidelines finalized. With that, I don't think I have any more to say. Keep it short and sweet.
Thank you, Mike. All right, hey, we've got our questions back again. Hopefully we've got some answers now. I think we all had the first one figured out from the get-go. So let's, we'll go to the next one. We'll talk about the different things that we can consider. A, utilize motion detectors with appropriate light intensity. B, decrease light intensity after 10. Focus light where needed rather than flooding, and all of the above. I think we had this one pretty well before, and I think we now are still on board, all of the above, okay. Now, I bet you guys can answer the bottom one. So 800 lumen equivalent to 60? Yes, all right, you've got it. All right, great news. Okay, so we're gonna have a little opportunity for you to ask questions, Sam or any of us on the ALC. I just want to say from an ALC perspective, please keep your questions related to lighting and don't, talk to me about something else. This is not we don't want this forum to be that. There are other opportunities if you do have other questions. So anyway, anyone that has a question, can kind of come up, and you don't need to say your unit and lot number or any of that stuff. Just have fun. Go ahead, sir. Oh, are we on here? Okay, you're good now.
What are your suggestions for low voltage lighting that may be shining at trees or bushes or lighting basically upwards towards the tree? Do we understand my question?
Well, people are looking at me on this one. On an earlier slide, where we had the terminology, did you happen to remember seeing BUG, B-U-G? Well, that's a system that came in 2006. It's called the Backlight Uplight Glare System. And that was guidance information that a lot of municipalities took and made their regulations. Uplight in the Pinell County regulations or ordinance, uplight is forbidden. A caveat though. Uplight in an obnoxious fashion is forbidden. That is not allowed. Decorative lighting for low voltage, particularly for trees and things like that, that is recognized as something that is, improves your property appearance and such. So I think as the last time we spoke with Tucson, Pima County, and by the way, we are working with Pinell, Tucson, Pima County, and Santa Cruz County. They're all three updating their ordinances, and we're working with all three. But Tucson, Pima County said, well, that's something that it's low voltage. It doesn't really add a lot of light into the atmosphere. We might overlook that unless the luminance is too high, it is obnoxious, then we would say no. So I think here in Saddlebrook, and Mike and Bruce are probably going to need to overrule me, but I think it's probably acceptable here if it's done in good taste.
Oh, I like the term good taste. We just found a section in our guidelines that excludes the American flag, which is an important feature here.
All right, and I do see something here in the HOA2 guidelines talking about accent lights described as a spotlight directed at a landscape object, and it says maximum 400 lumens. So we do allow it. Next question.
I'm one of a number of people who do astrophotography and astronomy from their backyards here in Saddlebrook. And I just want to say it's a wonderful benefit to be able to do that. And I want to thank all of those people who follow the guidelines for the lighting and would encourage them to continue to do that. And please turn them out after 10 o'clock. But it's a wonderful thing, and I thank all of you who follow those guidelines.
Thank you, Randy. I just happened to know that guy, and I did not pay him to make that comment. Randy is one of our, I'm not sure how to describe it, most skilled astrophotographers in Tucson, not just here in Saddlebrook. He's published. So, thanks, Randy. Other questions? Can I make one other comment? To Kathy's pictures, her photos, those were very good, but when you take a photo with an iPhone, the color is not always the best. In some of the photos where you compared the cool versus the warm, that was a little bit overdone by the camera. If you were to put a 2700K light bulb next to a 3500K light bulb, perceptually the eye would not tell much of a difference. There would be. You'd be able to tell which is the more pleasing light. That would be the 2700K. But it's not that stark difference. Some of her photos showed kind of an amber yellow color. Not so. It's regular light, but it's a little maybe more towards that lighter yellow spectrum, amber spectrum, but it's not significant. I hope no one took that incorrectly. Is that kind of clear? Great, thank you.
I think that's it, and I appreciate you all staying over an hour.